welcome back to the Chronicles podcast, or just welcome if you have not listened before. Hi, my name is Becca, and this is the second time of me trying to do this intro because the first time I am clearly not back in recording mindset, and I just clicked record on my computer and I was looking at myself in the camera and I didn't realise until I was nearly done a little ramble that I did before even getting into the introduction without even having it recorded. So I guess if you love listening to these podcasts and you usually listen to the end, I'll put the 2-minute clip of me just rambling at the end because I can tell I was just a wee bit too high energy when I came in, so now I'm back down on a level. However, hello, happy new year, since it is the first post from me for 2025, and this episode is going to be about 2024, what I'm leaving behind, what were my kind of highlights, and what are my goals for 2025. And I started the last recording by saying I had 5 things. Ignore if the lighting's not right, we're at a different angle, I might keep it. If you can see my lashes lifting or sticking to different parts of my eyes, ignore it, they've been on most of the day. Spot stickers, I have my period and my spots are just going wild, so I'm trying to do something about it rather than just wanting to claw my face off. The last thing was, I didn't know if I was actually going to record this today, so nearly did it again because I got a phone call, had to stop recording, started recording on the microphone, nearly didn't start recording on the camera. The last thing I was going to say was I didn't know if I was going to record today because I have been mentoring, and it felt weird starting the new year in the middle of a week. So I'm recording this on the 6th of January, which for me is going to be the start of the year, and I had to get this podcast out of me before I could start researching the other things that I'm doing. And I got home and I had some food and I was like, oh, I really just want to have a nap or chill, but I know that if I don't do this it'll drive me crazy. And then I was having my weekly fill of soaps and was watching Coronation Street for tonight, and that made me very emotional. So who knows, maybe we'll have some emotions in this podcast because my period's a wild time, spots, brain woo-woo, and pain heightened, and it's also been cold, so for the past 2 days I've hardly been able to move out of my bed, and I ended up doing some colouring pages. I'm going to insert the ones here on the screen that I done because I'm so proud of them. I joined a little group on Facebook and I'm just so loving colouring, and I'm going to finish this book because I've never finished a colouring book. And yeah, anyway, I thought it was maybe going to be a bit of a shorter ramble on my second/third attempt to record this episode. However, I am actually going to get into the introduction that I've now written down, so let's see what I've covered and what I've not. But yeah, I hope you guys had okay holidays. That's all that we can really wish for at a baseline, is okay, not happy, not good, just okay, you made it through, you're here. Let's get into this episode of my 2024 recap and what are my goals for 2025. I also hope you have noticed the new music and the introduction on the YouTube video. I am trying really hard this year to up my game in all aspects and just be consistent. I'll get to that more later, but I started this podcast back in 2023, which is wild, to talk about a Lazarov frames, healing after a traumatic car accident, and mental health, and how I was adjusting to life as an amputee. In that time, it has become talking about these things, but also everything in between, as just explained in the last 5 minutes there. I have touched on my nursing journey, some of the things that I love researching and geeking out on, and a mixture of experiences from pre-accident and post-accident life. There are things that I have chatted about on the podcast that I didn't know if I would ever be brave enough to tell another soul about them, never mind posting it online. And it is something that at times makes me feel quite vulnerable, that at some point somebody could try and use those things to hurt me in some kind of way. Like, I always have this feeling from when I was quite young, like, it's a bit weird to talk about because, like, I used to feel like a lot of, oh, I'm totally crazy for having this feeling, but, like, my life was the Truman Show, and I say that as somebody who has never seen the Truman Show, but I have an understanding that it is somebody that basically gets live streamed 24/7, and that is this, like, negative thought loop that I had, let's call it that, that when I was younger, when things were really bad, I believed that life was some kind of game and that it was people were trying to score the highest points and how much they could hurt me, and like maybe the top person won a prize or something. Because looking back at it, I can see that my brain's trying to process how I am dealing with so much pain and being caused pain, but surely it has to be for something, because people can't just be doing this to make me feel bad. And I felt like the world was out to get me, like there was some kind of leaderboard, that people were in competition, because that was some kind of reason for why I was enduring so much pain, and it couldn't be for nothing. And I felt crazy, and even kind of saying it out loud, it's hard to kind of spit it out, because at those points where these horrible loops in my brain would convince me that because my experiences were invalidated a lot of the time or sworn to secrecy, that maybe I was just pretending to be in so much pain. Maybe the people that told me that I was attention seeking were right, and that maybe all of this was for attention, and maybe I'm not mentally ill. But somebody that thinks in that way isn't healthy in the brain, I don't think. Wow, I totally just grilled myself there, didn't I? But it didn't really make sense to me that it was attention seeking, because I'd done anything to also be invisible. I wanted to disappear into the background, be quiet, be polite, don't make too much of a fuss, because if I'm agreeable, then people won't be angry, and if I just do everything perfect, everyone will be happy. But unfortunately, that's just not the reality. It meant that I internalised a lot of things that were not my fault, not my responsibility, and experiences that children shouldn't have to have. And in that, the shame and the guilt of those things almost grew inside of me like mould. I would see old photos of myself with dark hair, wearing dark clothes, doing almost anything to cover my face because I hated how I looked. At first, when I was encouraged by my physio to share about my Lazarus frame because there wasn't a lot of information, I remember posting 2 videos. One where I explained a little bit about my car accident, and then another where I showed off my full length Lazarus frame. And these videos very quickly started to get attention. I think by the time I was going to sleep after I'd posted it, and I'd posted it kind of late at night, it was on round about like 9,000, 10,000 views, and even that to me was crazy, and I could already feel some kind of anxiety building. And when I woke up in the morning, it was round like 25, 30k, and I was actually terrified, to be honest, how like I had actually been perceived by 30,000 people. That's insane. Like, I got inside of my head so quickly, and it was kind of going back to that similar thinking loop that started very early on in my life. And I was so worried that there was people out there that saw me with this frame and blamed me for my accident. At this time, that was really difficult because I still felt a lot of guilt and shame around my accident. I couldn't bear that somebody online, even if I did not know them, could say something that, although I knew was untrue, it was something that I felt extremely fragile about. I didn't want to put myself out there when I felt like I couldn't take criticism that would come my way. And I'm like, somebody telling me that my car accident was my fault isn't exactly criticism, but I know, like, when you're putting yourself out online, you are opening yourself up to people's opinions, and sometimes they are not the nicest. Like, inevitably, when you put yourself out there, there's going to be people that love your content, and there could be hundreds of those, but one person says something really horrible for no reason, and it can be quite hurtful. So I have only had it a handful of times, but thankfully I noticed, like, these first few TikTok videos, that I wasn't quite ready to put myself out there, and that was probably back in 2021 that I first kind of posted a few videos on TikTok. And I did think initially that I would post quite a lot on TikTok, but I just didn't have it in me, to be honest. So I worked on healing my body in whatever way possible, meaning looking after my frame, going to physio, undergoing amputation, caring for my wounds, whilst also pushing for mental health support, because I knew that talking things out in content, whether that was TikTok or YouTube, posting stories on Facebook, or here now recording a podcast episode, I had really come to terms with the things that I had insecurities about, because a lot of the time I think that people can't hurt me worse than some of the things that I've said to myself. So why has this introduction been so long, and why am I telling you all about this personal childhood thought process? Well, if you hadn't guessed, me talking about TikTok and how I felt at the time, I finally felt ready to put myself back out there in 2023, and I started working my way through telling my story of my accident and how I felt at the time. And I never really realised how freeing it could be to put my stories out there and hope they find the people that need to hear them. In university, I had really considered doing a TED Talk about mental health in some capacity. I don't know what the content of the talk would have been, but I wrote an email to the person that was organising it, and they'd got back to me and said, like, to send them a few things, and I really thought about it, but I just lost all of the little confidence that I had in myself at that point, and I decided not to do it. And I do realise now that I do need that, like, external encouragement from people, and everyone I spoke to were really excited about me doing the podcast. I have been told to write a book on so many occasions about my experiences. However, when I started going through the experiences I did with disability after my car accident, reading a lot of stuff online where it's just text, it all feels quite scary, to be honest. I thought that somebody would maybe enjoy watching content where it comes with a bit of a friendly voice, I suppose, if you think that about me. I think that about me, so that's all that matters. But yeah, I thought it was better to do a podcast instead of making a book. I knew from posting about my recovery online, kind of like privately on my Facebook, that there were a lot of people that were cheering me on silently, and that was what kind of really encouraged me to start the podcast. Point of this basically is that no matter if my videos get 10 views or 100 views or listens or streams on Spotify or audio platforms, I really like to think that the people who need to hear it and see it will. I have such a passion for what I'm doing right now, and that is really exciting. I wanted to share the start of my journey with coming to terms of putting myself out there, because even when I first posted the podcast, I wasn't sure of myself. And I think looking back, especially compared to this episode, probably to my first episode, there might be a lot of changes the more comfortable I have got sitting down in front of a camera and talking. And even kind of when I'm watching the podcast back and editing it, it is ending up having pieces of content that I am really happy and genuinely proud of, and I really want to continue doing that. Like, before recording this, before even scripting this episode, I have other episodes. I said at the end of 2024 I had some content pre-recorded, so it'll be back to no green hair Becca, but I will be back soon. But I hope you realise, like I'd said about the new intro and stuff like that, it's got like some new graphics, and I am going to be trying to do a bit more editing. Not really sure right now, but it is the year for the podcast this year. 2025 is a year that like I get my shit down, and then hopefully it blossoms. I also mentioned at the last episode of 2024 that the new year can be a time of reflection. Sometimes it can be pretty overwhelming seeing the things that people have achieved if 2024 was a tough year, which from a lot of things on social media, I think that 2024 was a tough year for quite a lot of people. I didn't expect as much to happen this year, and it feels like, well, last year, but it feels like such a long year and short year all at once. And I don't tend to do New Year's resolutions. Wow, I'm really bad at speaking today. I don't tend to do New Year's resolutions, but for 2024, one of my goals was to be more consistent with the podcast, and unfortunately, it just didn't quite work out. I had other things that had to take priority, and sometimes that happens. So I decided that I'm just going to kind of move that goal for 2025, be more consistent, try and get back to weekly uploads. Just, yeah, I like to think that sitting here, I have achieved quite a lot in the past year. Even if I didn't meet the goal that I set for myself, I didn't completely sack off the podcast and say, oh, well, I've failed at being consistent, so I'm just not going to post, because that really used to be the black and white thinking that I had, that if I'd failed at something, you just sack it off because what's the point? That's just not reality. Sometimes things happen and you don't quite meet your deadline or your goal, but I'm trying to move with it. And I also mentioned that I had been out today. I don't know if it was in the previous recording that I started, but I was at mentoring today, and it's actually a full year of me being a mentor, which is really exciting. Trying to have a social life and get out of the house more It feels like I'm juggling quite a lot sometimes, but today you have plenty of content of Becca yapping because I have a lot of notes here and I really didn't think that I would be at like 20 minutes of recording whilst only finishing the introduction. I'm not even sure if I can call this an introduction anymore. I am probably going to, because why the fuck not? It is my podcast. Before I think about the things that I achieved in 2024 and the things I am leaving behind with my goals for the upcoming year, you know the score. If you like this video and all of my chat, please subscribe on YouTube, audio platforms such as Spotify and Amazon and Apple Podcasts. Those three were off the top of my head. Turn on the little notification bell so you get notifications when I post. Hopefully it is going to go back to weekly content posting in February, so if you want to know about that, please turn the notifications on. Shorter content, Instagram, TikTok, at Cripple Chronicles Pod. Anything you would like to get in contact with me about, please send me an email to cripplecchroniclespod@gmail.com, and let's finally get into this episode. Because my memory can be absolutely awful and processing in my brain is, I explain it as being like a bit of a filing cabinet that's messed up. Some of the things are in order, some things like they felt were this year but probably 2023. Some folders are open and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. Empty. So if you are watching along on YouTube, you will see some of the photos to go along with my achievements. I am going to add the step of splitting the year into months of the year. Some months may have more achievements than others, and some months might just be making it through, and that's okay. Before I get into that, I think my biggest achievement of 2024 was making it through, throwing myself into therapy and feeling all of the feelings that were there to be felt, choosing myself properly for the first time in my life and trying to unlearn and heal those people-pleasing tendencies. It has been a year at times where the loneliness felt very suffocating. I went through some stuff in 2024 that I am not quite ready to share yet on the podcast. Some things that still need processing to be done before I share that part of my journey. I also started antidepressant medication again in 2024, which I started on duloxetine and was prescribed for pain, and I am now on venlafaxine, and I am still kind of getting the dosage right, but that is something that is an achievement for me, because if you asked somebody that knew me even 3 years ago, they would probably tell you that I am very against getting put on medication. But it was only at that point because I didn't want to be medicated without also having therapy, which I did. I also know that I need a little bit of help trying to balance my off-brain chemicals. I have started, no, I did so much in 2024. I started January off with doing just over 2,200 miles on my car, and I am finishing the year having done about 13,000 miles on top of that, exploring more of Scotland, being able to go to Leeds at times where I was feeling lonely or just needed a bit of a safe space to just be. I am so thankful of having that to fall back on, but let's get going through these photos and videos. I am a little bit nervous, to be honest, because I did these photos like nearly a week ago, and I didn't put any text with them. I just split them into months. So you're going to get a rundown of 2024 of me trying to decipher why I've picked these photos as well. So yes, enjoy. If you're listening, I will try to explain the photos in the best way possible, but maybe you want to see the video for this. But if not, you can continue listening and see how badly I do it in image description. So we start January off. Oh god, I need to zoom out on my notes, because wow, I don't need the photos as zoomed in as I needed the text. Huh? Oh. I just spent all that time zooming in and out, and the photos don't even zoom in and out anyway, so I went to go see Agony's Scrooge in the theatre, which was a pantomime, and it was the first time in years that I had been at a pantomime, I think, since I was younger, and especially as being a wheelchair user, they had a little spot, but it was nice, but also, like, I was with my brother and he was up on a higher step and I was like sitting down, but they had said there'd been some kind of mix up and that's why it happened. And then it got to like the first break, and I think the people that were in the seats next to me hadn't showed up, so my brother got to like come and sit down next to me. So that was my little trip to the pantomime. I then started being a mentor, which I mentioned in the introduction. If you've paying attention, I've realised that I've not really been explaining these photos, have I? There is a photo of me in this green jumper that I'm actually wearing today, standing up in front of my wheelchair with my mentor handbook. That was the first meeting for my mentee, and it has been a full year of mentoring, which is just so amazing. Going on, I then picked up a hobby which I didn't finish. Surprise, surprise. I got a little embroidery kit for my birthday in 2023, and I started that in January, and I think I only did the outline of it. It's like a person and they've got like their eyes cut off and it's flowers, but I don't even have a photo of when I did the outline, so shows how well that went. I then got fit for a new prosthetic in January, which I don't think lasted me very long. I think I have a new leg in like March or April too. I don't know, I'll need to actually fact check myself when we go through the months. This is what I'm talking about, filing cabinet, time is an illusion. I don't know if it was July or April. It's anyway, back to January, shall we? I went for a walk to the Falls of Falloch. I had my wheelchair with me, and there is a photo of me with my bright orange crutches standing in front of the pretty waterfall. I managed to go like partly walking from the car and using my wheelchair, and then I walked up the little path to the waterfall, and I think I managed to walk all the way back to the car, which was like 500 metres. So that was like such a good start to the year, because I was like, woohoo, getting on with my walking. Spoiler alert, prosthetic started hurting again. But anyway, before we get to that, I got my ID for being a mentor. I don't actually know if I'm going to show this photo just now. Maybe, maybe not. I then had a little trip to Leeds and went to see Eleanor, and I just started laughing there because it's a video of me just like, I can't remember if I'm hopping or walking. Yeah, it's just me getting out of the car, hopping when I got to Eleanor's. I then had a little bit of a meltdown. Let's listen to / watch the video. Being disabled is really fucking difficult. I got my new prosthetic today and I was feeling good with it on. Getting an abscess in my mouth. I've lost my antibiotics. I know if you go into the chemist they can just give you new antibiotics. So I had to park away from the entrance of the chemist because there was no spaces outside, because guess what? Everybody was parked getting their lunch, so I'm fucking hobbling on both of my crutches with my prosthetic on, standing there just like, no, you need to phone the doctors. I wanted to go home and have a dance my leg on, and now I just want to sit in my car and cry. Because it's when you plan out to do something and it doesn't quite work out. And I know for a fact that if I go home I can't go back out because I've already used too much of my energy. It's fucking brutal, man. Fuck's sake. That makes me sad, but it is still a very accurate way of how I feel some days. Like, spoon theory, I have a certain amount of spoons that I can spend on a given day. If I am in pain, I have less spoons. If I've not slept well before, I have less spoons. And sometimes things just don't work out, and I knew that I couldn't. I'd stood in the chemist. I thought it was going to be just an easy thing of going in and out, and I wanted to have a dance with my leg on to celebrate and getting a new prosthetic, and I couldn't, and that sucked. And it is things like that that get me upset, that are things that are totally out with my control, because I try to plan for it and I just can't, because like I said, it's out with my control. I then started my solo therapy in January. Wow. Wow, it was a lot. And I also started going back to like weekly physio sessions where I was trying to build up how much weight I'm putting onto my prosthetic so that I can hopefully walk without using a crutch or a walking stick. Don't know if that's going to be possible yet, but it was looking good with how much weight I was able to transfer over, and we started doing some new things of me standing on like a wobble board and seeing how my balance was with that and things like that. However, that didn't really last very long, but with my leg I was able to go out. I went to my gran's, and it was the first day in 4 years that I had been out without actually taking my wheelchair with me. So I walked to the car. I then got out at the shops and I got myself a drink, which was really annoying actually, because I got out and like we have like fridges that have stuff, so I was looking for energy drink. There wasn't any. There was like 3 members of staff, and I'd said like, have you got any more? And they said no, me knowing for a fact that there is an energy drink aisle. So I walked all the way up to the back of the shop, got the energy drink, went to the till. So again, me talking about, oh, I've only got a certain amount of spoons, I thought I was going to go in and it would just be right there, but it wasn't. So I then went further, and then I have less energy. But anyway, that wasn't a problem for that day. It was a problem for the next day when I was in pain. But I then went to my gran's, and I usually don't take my wheelchair into my gran's house because it's up the stairs. So usually if I'm going, I'll just hop up the stairs. But I'll normally always have like my wheelchair in the car with me. So it was nice to have a day where I went out and I didn't have to worry about lifting my wheelchair into the car and things like that. In February, I then did, me and my pal tried to do some candle art where like you melt different candles and try and paint it on. It was a thing on TikTok. I didn't think that it worked out very well. I mean, the candles turned out quite cute. Not sure if you can hear that shouting in the background. I hope you can't. But the candles turned out quite cute. I then did some podcast stuff, which I was very proud about. And I also in February went and visited the Kelpies for the very first time, which I did a video about on TikTok about the Kelpies. I'll maybe link it below if you want to find out more. But at this, I went there and I actually was brave enough to ask somebody to take a photo for me, and it was so cute because it was like a guy with his wee girl, and she was just so adorable, and she was like making faces at me and it was making me laugh, and it was just so cute. So I'm glad that I asked them to take my photo so that I have something to show here of me laughing in front of the Kelpies when a stranger took it, and that is just wild to me because I would never have been able to do that. In February, I then got a tooth pulled out because I was having toothache. I actually can't remember taking this photo in the dentist, but I remember taking it because I was scared and I wanted my mum, I wanted a parent, I didn't want to be there on my own. I'm like, I don't care if I'm 26 years old at this point. I want a guardian. I don't want to be here by my own. I want somebody to come and hold my hand like I'm a child. So yeah, I did that on my own. So big girl, big star for Becca. I then went to my first gig in 6 to 8 years. The last gig that I went to, I stayed for 1 or 2 songs and left because it was far too overwhelming for me. And last year I found out that You Me at 6 were splitting up, and the day that they released it, I found that they still had concert tickets for like 2 weeks later in Aberdeen. So me and my pal drove to Aberdeen and went and saw them, and oh, it was so good. I cried my wee heart out because some of their music really helped me when I was younger, and it was just so nice to be at a gig. I'm not back at a point where I would attend the gigs like I used to when I was like 14 to 17 maybe, but it was nice. I then also, in February of 2024, I started trying to get a routine underway, which was really difficult, to be honest. I start routines, I don't really stick to them, and it's hard because I have been so used to having parts of my life structured by education or work, and I don't really have that right now, so all of my motivation has to come from me, and I don't want to lie in my bed all week if I don't have to. So I then need to get up and do things, but then I do too much and then I have to have recovery time, and it's really difficult to find the balance. So that's hopefully going to maybe come to fruition in 2025. I'm still kind of trying to work on it, trying to map out days for things, but then also having a switch up where I do like different things different weeks, so it's not all just the same shit all the time, because that would drive me insane. I also took a little trip to Kelvin no, I can't remember what it's called. I'm going to put it on the screen what it's called whilst I show the photo. It's like a big woodland park. It said it was wheelchair accessible. I had it was not wheelchair accessible. I fought with the terrain to get round it. Very infuriating. But I went there, and I went there because I hadn't been there since I was younger. Can you kind of see a theme here? What was happening in 24, just kind of really facing up to my past. And I said it was March or April when I got cast for a new prosthetic. It was actually February, because I have a photo here of a test socket. So if you've never seen a test socket before, I'll put it here on the screen. What it basically means is it's just made out of clear plastic. I put my stump in it, see where it comes to, they put all the markings on it, and then they adjust it, and with those they make me my final one, which should then fit perfectly when I get it, which was okay initially, but Again, problems where I'm now going to have to go back to a different mechanism of putting my leg on instead of it having suction, because my capacity, not really capacity, like my density, I don't know the word for it, my volume of my stump keeps changing, so I can't have a liner that's suctioned on with air, because if it's too small it doesn't suction on, and if it's too big then I can't get the leg properly on. I am kind of driving myself a bit crazy with all of these photos, because it just feels like a bit of overkill for the amount of things I put in. I really didn't need all of this to talk about in 2024, so I'm going to speedrun some of these. I started on medical marijuana in February of 2024. I stopped it in like September, October, because it was just far too expensive for me. I couldn't afford it. And if you want to know more about that, I do actually want to make a podcast episode about it, because I am going to, when I have my finances a bit better, try to go back on it, because I've kind of just paused it for the moment whilst I can't financially sustain it. Wow, my words are really bad today. Let's see what else. I don't get it. I got cast for a new prosthetic a few weeks ago, and I've just went back today for my test fitting, and it doesn't fit me at all. There is zero suction on my leg because it's so big, and they made it smaller, and I don't understand it. My prosthetist doesn't understand it. She's really quite stumped, to be honest, pardon the pun, because this is every time now when I go to get my leg, and she's like, have you lost weight? Have you shrunk? And I'm like, I'm not doing anything any differently. I don't get it. Now I need to wait another 3 weeks for a test socket, and then it won't be until I get that sorted that I'll then need to wait and get my proper leg. I really hoped I was going to have my prosthetic for the end of March, and now it's not looking likely, and that sucks. I forgot I had that little video about my prosthetics fitting, so yeah. You're welcome. Let's see what I got up to in March. I visited a few museums. I took another little trip down to Leeds. I got a little banner that is for the podcast that I've just not had anything to do with yet. Maybe it'll go on that wall. I don't know. Because this wall next to me and this wall in front is kind of bare, but like this is the easiest way to record, so I'm not having to like move tables and stuff before I'm recording. So the background, the works, it's happening this year, baby. Yeah, there is some cute photos of Simba in here. I got my mermaid hair, which was purple, pink, orange, and kind of yellow to start off with in March. I've now switched it up a little bit, but we love that. I also started in the terms of like routine in February or whatever I said, blah 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 blah. I also started to do some clip scheduling for TikTok for the podcast, which is still ongoing. However, there's not been as many clips because I posted some for December and thought I was covered, and I'd only done some for certain days. So I will be back on TikTok with clips from the podcast this year too. So if you like to see shorter clips instead of me rambling, it's probably not good me saying 50 minutes into recording that you can go to TikTok, but I said it in the introduction about smaller clips, so maybe you read that. If you're 50 minutes in and you've not listened and you want to find bits from the podcast to listen to that are just in sections, then you can go to the TikTok. But yes, let's get into April. My first photo from April, I got my big, massive emotional support teddy, which I call Sad Boy. He is a massive dog, and I'll show you the photo of me when I took him out the box, because it was like 20 quid from Smith's. I didn't expect it to be so big, and I was like, damn. But now he stays on my bed and he keeps me company at night, so I love that. I also, in April/May, because I realised that I put April and May together. I don't know if it was April or May. I kind of joined April and May together, and when I put the photos on my notes, I just like selected some, added it to my notes, because I thought I was going to record it like the next day and I would have it fresh in mind of why I added the photos. However, over these few months is actually one of my highlights of 2024. I got to see two of the loveliest people get married, and it was just so beautiful. And yeah, I'm gonna put in some photos of what I looked like going to the wedding, and yeah, when I watched back the wedding video, because like they had a ceremony and then I went to like the reception the day after, but they had, and it was like still just like a small thing, and it just felt so lovely to be invited and like to be there celebrating my pals get married. And yeah, it was so good, and watching the video, like me and Eleanor watched it together, and I was pure bawling because I'm like, oh, it's just so cute. They love each other so much, and I love them. So cute. What else happened in April/May? Oh, I think it was round about this time I tried boba for the first time. That might have been 2023. I feel like it was round about the start of 2024 that I tried boba for the first time, and I've been wanting to try it since it kind of became a thing in the UK, but I've always just been too scared because like I didn't know if I would like the texture of the boba bubbles, so I was like, And I also took, pardon me, a little trip to Inverary round about this time, which is, I don't even know how to describe where it is. It's in Scotland, and I got some stickers for the podcast when I got the wee banner that I was talking about, and I'd cut them all up and I'd put them into my bag, and I kept forgetting that I had them on me. So when I went to Inverary, I stuck a Chronicles sticker on the bin. So I guess this is a challenge. If you're ever in Inverary and you see a Chronicles sticker, take a picture of it and like tag me in your story on Instagram or something, and I'll be like, oh my god, that's so cool, because I've not really put a lot of stickers up anywhere. So treasure hunt, on you go. July, I have a photo of me with my leg on, and I'm pretty sure like I got my leg in April sometime, and I was able to wear it until the end of July, I think, and maybe the start of October, and that was it. August. Wow, days of the month really are not the best for me. Last year I also started getting more confident with making my face a palette when I was doing makeup and things like that, which I just love. It isn't today because when I'm at mentoring, I go looking as normal as possible because I know what kids are like, and I ain't wanting to get somebody bullied because their mentor looks crazy with like shit drawn all over their face. That's my vibe, but like I understand that it's a bit out there, so I ain't gonna put anybody in the line of questioning, I suppose. I also took some trips to the beach last year, which was really great. I've not been at a beach in years, and one that I'd went to on one of the first days, like it was quite windy, so a lot of the like path down to the beach was showing. And then the next time that I'd went, kind of in June, July time, I managed to wear my prosthetic and walk on the beach, and I actually have a little video of it which I will put in here. And in July, I also had a little picnic for Eleanor's birthday, and I put this little photo in because we had the picnic basket, and Eleanor had a mastiff, that's how I always have to say it, called Bonzo, and he unfortunately went to doggy heaven a few months ago, so I just wanted to like put this photo of Bonzo looking at the food like he always would, because that is just the best way to remember him. And do you know what, that's all I'm gonna say for July, because got a place in my heart for the big soft boy. It's not the same going to Leeds without his big tail thumping and meeting me at the door. Even though Simba got a lot more violent at Christmas time because there was not a big dog there to keep him in check, and I think he maybe thought he was getting left with two other cats, so I got attacked for that. Thanks, Simba. Let's go to August. In August is my amputation anniversary, which in 2024, the same as 2023, I had myself a little boudoir shoot, which I do just to remind me of how much my body has got through, and to be able to love myself a bit and just feel nice and sexy and lovely in my body. So that is why I take those photos. I also did my first art sale at the Queer Car Boot in Leeds, which I did another one in November again. I think I managed to sell like 3 or 4 things, which to be honest is just really nice to know that people have their art in my house. And when I got back from the second one, I put like a lot of my art up just because round about the end of the year it was hard for money, and I had a few people more that bought my stuff, and I got to see like my art hanging up in their houses, and that is probably my favourite part, is just like seeing something I've did in somebody's house and knowing that they love it, and I'm just like, it makes me so happy. But yeah, I also took a little trip to Kinlochard, which isn't really much, to be honest. I just kind of saw a lock, picked it, was like, never been to that one, let's go. There was nothing, like hardly even a place to park my car unless it was on the side of the road, and I just felt a bit weird doing that. But I got out, I managed to get my chair out, and I actually found a little river where it was just nice to sit. And then on the way home I drove past a place called Gartmore. These places probably don't sound familiar to a lot of people, but when I was younger we went, like we would do a residential trip where you would go like away for a week with the school, and we went to Gartmore, and it was a big house in Gartmore, so I went up and I drove past it. Just kind of like I said at the start, 2024 was a thing of me kind of actually looking at my past, my experiences, as well as the things that I used to do and the things that I've not done for a long time, and trying to embrace them and pick those things up, and maybe even see that something that I thought was scary in my brain isn't as bad in person, because when I actually go and see something I'm like, oh, it actually looks normal, it doesn't look how it looks in my nightmares. Wow, that was crazy. But I didn't know how else to brush that one off, so let's just shake away that trauma. In October, I got myself my first ever sketchbook. I had like big ones when I was a kid, but they always seemed too big and they were like leather bound, so I was scared to like do art in them because I wasn't good at art. But I realise in me doing things now, like I wasn't really encouraged to do arty things when I was younger, and like it wasn't really something that was really encouraged at school and things like that, so I really just kind of pulled away from arty things. But I'm such a creative person, like I love getting creative, I love like even talking about the colouring book pages earlier and stuff like that. It really calls out to me. So I got myself a sketchbook so that I didn't feel like I could only do art when I had canvases lying about, because that was becoming a problem. Canvases aren't exactly cheap. You can get some cheaper ones off Amazon, like the flatter ones, but whenever I do work on a canvas, I'm like, I feel like I need to put it up and I need to sell it, and some things I do that I like that I don't want to put up, but I don't want to sell them. So getting a sketchbook was somewhere in there where I could have somewhere, and I could just have them to appreciate. I didn't have to sell them, they were for me, but I also didn't have to put them up on my walls and things like that. That was a bit of a ramble about a sketchbook. Today has been lots of rambles, to be honest. I think one of the last things for 2024 that I'm going to cover is I also went on a few road trips this year. I took a little trip to St Andrews, which again I think is somewhere that I'd been as a kid, but I never remembered it, and even when I went back I was like, wow, I really don't remember this. But I went to St Andrews, and then I took another trip in October where I spoke about it on the podcast actually, my West of Scotland road trip, where me and a friend went to the Isle of Bute, Skye, and can't remember, and my brain is really starting to decline a little bit and my back's starting to get sore as well, so this is going well. Let's just have a look through at what I've got for November and December. Some Cuddle and Simba, my second little setup for the art show, and that's it, I think. Oh, my new wheelchair. That was something really exciting. I was so buzzing to get my new chair because I waited ages for it. And yeah, I am going to put a little photo of it here. I think I showed it off in like one of the last episodes, but I'm not sure, so I'll put the photo in. And I am also going to get back to the things that I wrote for this episode, and then we are gonna vanish. I am planning on posting this round about the 20th of January. I have some episodes that I've already recorded which will be coming out after that one. However, it will be back to weekly uploads starting February, which I am very excited about. But yes, I am now going to speak about what things I am leaving in 2024. These are just some like quick little points that I wrote down of like things and ideas, I guess, that I want to leave in 2024. Shaming myself for things that were not my fault. Trying to people please because it is exhausting, and something that I spent 2024 trying to identify and unlearn my people pleasing behaviours. Comparing myself and where I am to other people's journeys. They say that comparison is the thief of joy, and I know that other people may have had less or more severe circumstances, and we are all just doing the best that we can. Feeling shame or guilt for people helping me with my mobility aids, getting them in and out of the car, not apologising for using a wheelchair or rollator when I get one because they help me to be as mobile as I can be. One of my goals is related to this. Feeling like I take up too much space. It is not my fault if places are tight and it means my wheelchair is blocking something. I cannot do anything about that, and I am working on, instead of apologising, asking people to take alternative routes or wait until I'm done, depending on the location, event, etc. If it is somewhere that I can just move quickly, I will do, but I don't want to stress myself about accessibility that I cannot change in the moment because it is not my responsibility. I hope that makes sense because it did in my brain, and I think I kind of did a good job of verbalising it. I am also leaving behind not being my weird and wonderful self in fear that people won't like it or judge me. I am who I am, and I want people to see me for that and accept me and love me. I guess that goes alongside people pleasing. Trying to fix things that I did not break in the first place. It is no longer my responsibility, and it never should have been. Being in spaces or places that make me feel uncomfortable or undervalued. I think especially since 2023, I have had a few mantras, and the ones that go along with this are: I don't want to be in places where I am tolerated and not celebrated, and I choose places where I am wanted, not expected. One of the last things that I am leaving in 2024 is the idea that family is only made of blood and genetics. Chosen family is just as important, if not times, given the circumstances, more important than I ever realised. What are my goals for going into this new year of 2025? My goals are, like I have said throughout this episode, to be more consistent with the podcast. Please tell me that you saw that coming as being the first one that I was going to say, because there is no way that I did all of that rambling in the introduction to not have that sit at my number one. I also want to work on my physical health. Like I mentioned, I am having to go back to a prosthetic that I put on with a belt instead of air suctioning because of a lot of changes with my stump, meant that I have not had a wearable prosthetic for at least 5 to 6 months. And before that, I only kind of had a few months of getting back to wearing it before having problems. It is really hard to not let it get me down because I feel like I'm back at square one. But I am really hoping that I can work on walking with my prosthetic, and I have a prosthetic that I can wear for as much of the year as possible. Out with that, I am also starting to learn to do some dancing in my wheelchair. If you want to follow that, I would really suggest following Chronicles Pod on TikTok. And I am also going to start properly actually training to do a half marathon, which is really exciting. I am wanting to be around people who care about me and love me, and who I love and care about. I guess this goes along with leaving being around people, places and things that no longer serve me. Since 2029, I have been working very hard to tell people that they are important to me, that I'm grateful, proud or upset. I want to be around people where I can be myself and they can be themselves. I want to travel more. I want to get my passport finally and get to Amsterdam with Eleanor because we have been talking about it for years. I am also hopefully wanting to do a road trip to France at some point this year, which I am really hoping that I get time and energy and money to do so. And finally, I want to just continue doing what I'm doing, mentoring my young person in the schools, making this podcast, living, exploring, and working on myself to make the most beautiful life that I can possible. Like I said, I don't usually do New Year's resolutions. I guess there are things that I am adding on to my way of life. They are goals in 2025 and hopefully for the rest of my life. And some of them are going to change over time or be added to, but for now, those are my goals. They might not be things that are easily checked off, but they are things to work on and to achieve the last point, which is living the best life possible. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of the podcast and all of my yapping throughout about 2024 and what I hope is coming in 2025. If you're still listening, please leave in the comments what you've achieved, what are your goals for the new year, and what are things you are leaving behind in 2024. You can answer all three, you can answer one, two, do whatever you want, just leave something down below in the comments. With consistency, I mentioned that I have already recorded a few episodes for 2025, so these are going to be coming up. Like I said, we'll be swapping the green hair out because they were recorded at the end of the year, but they are already edited and ready to go up when I am recording this. So I am well and truly getting back on the horse to be consistent and hopefully make the most beautiful content that I can. Beautiful wasn't going to be the word that I was going to use. Maybe another goal for 2025 is being able to indulge in more self-care things like getting my nails done, because these have lasted the longest that I've ever had acrylics. These are like 4 weeks. You can see the grow out on them. I have one missing, which is a record. Like, by this time, usually most of my nails have popped off. I have some false lashes on today, but I really want to be able to get some lash extensions because there is a woman on my Facebook and I love all of her like handmade fans, and she has done an amazing job to like build up such like a fantastic wee business that like I always see very good reviews. And she used to be in somewhere in Glasgow that wasn't accessible, but they moved to a more accessible place, and since then I have been dying to get my lashes done, but I've just not really had the spare money for it. So if there is anybody in Glasgow that is looking to get their lashes done, I would very highly recommend Kira at Lure Beauty in Brigton, because all of her sets are stunning and she seems like such a lovely person. But anyway, that is it for this week's podcast. I am going to go back to posting weekly podcasts, which I am actually pretty excited about. Like I said, that is coming in February, and I gave you a longer episode this week, so I am not wanting to just jump right into the deep end and start going back to weekly content and not be able to keep up with that. So I am starting off on the right foot, pun and well and truly intended, because I only have a left foot. There's not really a pun when you have to explain it, Becca. Anyway, I hope you look after yourselves, as I have already tried to end this episode quite a few times, but look after yourself, look after the people that you love, give them a big squeeze, remember to hydrate and drink your water, and I will see you soon. And again, Happy New Year. I hope 2025 brings you all that you wish for in terms of your goals, and yeah, peace, much love. Bye! I did one there. Hi friends! Welcome back to the Chronicles podcast, and since it is my first podcast of 2025, I guess it is an obligatory, I struggle with that word, why did I choose to say that, Happy New Year. And I am going to start this podcast with about 5 points that I didn't have 5 minutes ago. But 1, if the lighting looks dodgy in the back, ignore it. I've not fully set up normally how I would do. 2, it's a different bit of an angle. Might stick with it, might not. Haven't really decided. 3, if you can see all of the spot stickers I've got on my face, period, and I'm breaking out like crazy. Number 4, if you can see my eyelashes sticking to places and lifting, also ignore that. And number 5 is, I can't really remember what I was going to say, to be honest. That was the trouble. I had 3 points initially, and then I thought of 5, and now I only have 4, I think, unless I numbered them weirdly. However, if you have not listened to the podcast before, hi, my name is Becca. I have just now remembered number 5. It was to do with my period. I'm feeling a little bit emotional today, and I was mentoring, and I thought, should I just like chill? And I thought, nah, I really want to get this episode recorded, and it feels weird starting the year in the middle of a week. So I am recording this on like the 6th of January, which for me is like when my new year's starting. I'm trying to get on a rope